So as John Calipari said, the head coach of Arkansas, who was announcing the Summer League game for a bit with John Wall, they missed on this kid.
Okay.
They missed him. And John Wall agreed and said that he should have been a first-round pick. This is kind of refreshing because with all the speculation going on with this Cavs offseason and the magnitude of what could possibly happen, it's nice to have some actual basketball to watch and a player to follow. I think this is a rare circumstance where we are seeing a player in Malik Thomas who has the talent of a lottery pick but is still raw enough to fall in the draft. I'm not going to overreact to Summer League because things take a while to translate. But from just a talent perspective, Malik Thomas looks like one of those guys that has the potential to be the steal of the draft. And that's all you can really ask for. So in this video, I want to break down his first few Summer League performances. He just had a 30 ball. I want to react to what NBA insiders are saying about him. And then I will finish off today with more Cavs rumors. I'm not going to completely disregard them, even though I've made 2 videos the last 2 days talking about a lot of the possibilities. Before I talk more about Malik Thomas though, real quick, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like and subscribe button. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. We are on the road to 60,000 subscribers, and with your support, I believe that we can get there super fast. Alright, let's actually get into what we've seen from Malik Thomas so far, because the box score is going to grab your attention immediately. A 30-point game in Summer League is always going to turn heads. But when you actually watch how he got there, that's where things start to get interesting. This wasn't just a hot shooting night where everything fell. In fact, he only shot 10 for 24 from the field, so efficiency-wise, it wasn't even some crazy outlier performance. But the fact that he was still able to get 30 while also adding in 7 assists, 4 rebounds, and 4 steals tells you everything about the kind of player he might be developing into, or at least the ceiling he has. The first thing that jumps at me, and this is something I don't think people fully expected coming into this draft, is the playmaking. This is where I think the "they missed this kid" quote comes from, because if he was just a microwave scorer, you could understand why teams let him slip. There's a lot of scoring guards in today's NBA. But what he's shown through these first couple of games is that he's not just a scorer. He's someone who could potentially run an offense in a couple of years. When you watch him operate with the ball, there's a level of control and creativity that feels advanced for a rookie who wasn't even primarily on the ball in college. His handle is way more dynamic than advertised, and he's kind of got this unpredictable rhythm to the way he moves. He doesn't have the prettiest jump shot, it's kind of ugly in some people's eyes, but he's constantly shifting his pace, using hesitations, little hip turns, and changes of direction, and all that stuff puts defenders in a really uncomfortable position. It almost looks chaotic, but also controlled. And that's the key. There were multiple possessions where you could see him manipulating the defense like a veteran. He's not just reacting, he's been setting things up. He'll take a couple of dribbles one way to force a help defender to lean, then he'll immediately snap to the other direction, and he'll create a passing window, and once he gets into the lane, that's where his vision really starts to show. There was one play in particular that perfectly sums this up. He was on the wing and drove baseline. He kind of jumped like he was going to take a tough shot, but instead he fired a one-handed skip pass all the way to the opposite corner. And the crazy part is, there wasn't even a teammate there yet when he left his feet. He threw it to where his guy was going to be. That's high-level processing. That's seeing the game one step ahead. Most rookies don't have that capability. And it wasn't just flashy passes either. He was making the right read over and over and over again. He was throwing pocket passes in the pick and roll, quick swing passes to keep the offense flowing, and he would drive and kick when the defense collapsed. Honestly, if you didn't know his background and someone told you that he'd been a full-time point guard his entire life, you'd believe it based on what we've seen. Now, does that mean he's going to come right into the NBA and immediately be a primary creator? Probably not. That's where we have to take things back to reality and not get too hyped up about what we've seen. It is Summer League, the spacing is weird, the defensive schemes are simplified, and the talent level isn't the same. But what you're looking for isn't perfection, it's just the flashes, and he's shown a lot of them. And that's why his former coach in John Calipari and a player like John Wall had their heads turned while watching him. When people who have played and coached at the highest level see a player consistently making advanced reads, manipulating defenses, and creating advantages that you just can't teach, it gets them talking. It really is just all instinct, and scoring wise, there's a lot to like too, but it's a little more complicated. Like I said earlier, 30 points is impressive no matter how you slice it, but the way he's been scoring definitely shows both the upside and the concerns. To start with the positives, he's been creating separation, which is really big. Whether it's been off the dribble or relocating off the ball, he's been consistently finding ways to get clean looks, and in today's NBA, that's half the battle. You don't have to be Steph Curry, but if you can generate space for your shot, you're giving yourself a chance to be efficient long term. His three-point shooting definitely is funky, but it goes in. Even the shots he missed were good looks. He's not just out there chucking up contested threes like he's LaMelo Ball. He's been getting in a rhythm. He's been using screens to his advantage. He's been attacking closeouts and pulling up when defenders go under the screens. To me, what he's shown is sustainable, but when you get to the finishing, there is some concern. Right now, he struggles a bit when he gets all the way to the rim, especially through contact. If he's going straight at a defender, there's a good chance the possession isn't going to end well. We've seen him get swallowed up a few times or knocked off balance. We've seen a lot of very difficult shot attempts from inside the paint. A lot of his finishing comes from floaters or these scoop-style layups where he's avoiding contact rather than going after it. And while those shots can be effective in stretches, they're not something that you want to rely on. We literally saw it from Donovan Mitchell at times throughout last year's playoffs. As good as Donovan is, sometimes he falls in love with the floater game and he goes away from contact, especially when he's getting beat up quarter after quarter. And that's when he goes on dry stretches, and that's where his inefficiency shows up and he's not scoring. But to his credit, he has shown some explosiveness. He had a couple of dunks, and they weren't just wide open. There is some real pop when he decides to go up strong. It's not like he's incapable. It's more just about consistency and decision making. But again, he's young. He'll figure that out as time goes on and he plays around a star like Donovan Mitchell. And if he can add some strength and improve his ability to absorb contact, then look out. Because if you pair that with the playmaking and the shooting, you're talking about a complete offensive guard. I think as he develops his inside game, his shot selection is going to improve. There were a few possessions in the most recent game where he settled for deep mid-rangers, and that's just not what you want to see in today's NBA unless you're elite at it like DeMar DeRozan. And for a rookie that's going to be trying to carve out a role for himself over these next few months, those are the kind of habits that coaching staffs are going to clean up. I don't know if I trust in Kenny Atkinson to clean it up. Maybe he's a better coach than I think, but from what I saw last year in the playoffs, he's just not really an adjustments guy. But I do think the Cavs have a solid coaching staff overall. It's not like it's just one guy out there that runs the show. But getting back to the main point, I think context definitely matters when we talk about Malik Thomas. I know I've been hyping him up. It's just summer league, and the roster hasn't been overflowing with offensive talent outside of a couple guys. There just isn't a lot of creation or spacing, and that can lead to players pressing, especially when you start to fall behind on the scoreboard. But I think if you put Malik in a real NBA lineup with better spacing and more structure, a lot of his decisions probably look a lot different. I'm not saying he's ready to play with the actual NBA guys. I'm just talking about the decision making solely. The 4 steals defensively he had also stood out to me. They weren't flukes. A lot of them came from jumping passing lanes. Obviously, Malik Thomas is not an elite lockdown defender. He wasn't in college. But generating turnovers can really cause you to develop into an elite defender. Even Donovan Mitchell, who is not necessarily the best on the defensive side of the ball, he's kind of a con on that end. He gets steals from jumping passing lanes, and it makes him a lot more valuable than if he didn't, for obvious reasons. I just think this whole thing is so intriguing. I know a guy is not going to go from summer league and be in the lineup. It took Jalen Tyson until year 2 to really be effective and actually get minutes. Year 1 is probably going to be a learning curve for Malik. But man, he just has so much upside. This is like that Imani Bates pick, but for a guy who actually has a head on him and probably isn't going to fail from internal factors and stuff that he can control. And when I compare him to Imani Bates, I don't mean that in a bad way. It's actually good. I'm saying he has a chance to become something special. I think Imani Bates had a ceiling to be a good NBA player. He at least had the tools. What I'm saying is that Malik probably has about a 25% chance to work out. 1 out of 4 times he becomes a solid NBA player. And that's what you want out of a second rounder. You don't want some guy who at best could turn into a borderline role player that plays 12 minutes a game. I'd rather have a boomer bust player. And from what I'm seeing from Malik, I think the Cavs have exactly that. That's really all I got for today. I know I said I was going to talk about rumors. I actually am just going to save that for another video. I want this one to solely be about Malik. I want him to be the star of the show. He deserves this praise because he's been absolutely balling out for the Cavs so far in Summer League. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point in the video. Let me know your thoughts about Malik Thomas in the comments below. Let me know what you'd like to see next. And until then, I will see you all later.